Hey everyone, I'm Sawyer Altman. I'm the CEO of Goblins. We are live here at our Goblins headquarters in Brooklyn, New York, and it's a pleasure to meet you all. I want to first of all just thank you so much for your interest in Goblins. It's so cool also to have you here. I know it's the summer for a lot of you, and if not, you're just getting back to school and things are really intense. So much respect for you educators who are keeping up with the latest ways of helping your students. And it's a pleasure, and I'm really excited to show you something that folks have been asking a lot about, which is the teacher view of how do you actually, you've seen the student's experience, how do you actually prepare that behind the scenes? What does the back end look like? We'll get into that in just a second. For those who are a little fresher on Goblins, I just wanted to create a quick refresher first, and we'll jump in right after. Goblins lets you speed up your math learning with instant visual feedback. So think of it like a smart worksheet. Teachers can assign to their students Goblins on any device. We're talking mobile, tablet, touchscreen Chromebook, and if they don't have a touch device, that's cool too. It'll also work with their trackpad. You can talk to Goblins and it will talk back to you. You can draw with your finger in real time and it feels just like pencil paper. It's something that's very natural for students. And then one of the things we're emphasizing here as well is Goblins provides students instant feedback, and instant feedback that you can trust. And so instant feedback tightens the learning loop, gives the students like many more tries at making mistakes, and it gives them a judgment-free zone to do that. And it also gives them the feedback they need to build their intuition, and they get that much faster, just every couple of seconds. And you can trust it because a few things. One, it was made by a teacher. It was the app that I wish I had, essentially, a former teacher here. And it also is really, really good at math, like far better at math than any other AIs you may know out there, like ChatGPT. And it's not a photo math. I mean, this is a real pedagogical tool that is meant to respond just like you. And it's really going to use a Socratic method to help the students figure out what they're missing and to fill in those blanks. And it'll be always empathizing with the student, figuring out if they go down this path or that path or that path, what is that suggestive of? What kind of misconception might that be revealing? And it will remediate that and figure out what the best pedagogy is for them. So that's Goblins in a nutshell. Many of you have seen the student experience, like I said. If not, check out our website. You can get a bit more on that. We've posted some content there. Let's get into what the actual teacher's experience is like. And in order to do that, I want to break this down. First, we're going to create our own assignment. We're going to share that assignment with students, we'll be able to hop into this assignment and see it ourselves. We're going to track student performance, as in we're going to see how the whole class did. We'll be able to see individual conversations and really drill down. And then just a couple of logistical items, like how to sync with your LMS, what a roster looks like, how the integration happens, porting your grades back over, and then once you've actually paid for Goblins, how to apportion your licenses to your students. So without further ado, let's make a new assignment. So I'll hop in here. So now we're actually in the Goblins app, and I'll go ahead and just put in an access code here and a totally random username. This is just a test one. You could have your students use their usual pseudonym or their usual name, whatever they use. And I'll log in, and because I'm an admin, I'll be able to see what's actually in this assignment. So this assignment's just getting loaded on the back end. And I'll hop in, and here's just a hodgepodge of different things, some 7th grade, 8th grade, and Algebra 1 assignments. We've got some quadratics, we've got volume, some surface area stuff, obviously trigonometry down here. And I can just go into any one of these problems and really just start solving. I'll be able to, per usual, drag with my finger. I already got started on that here. But the real question is, how did I actually make this assignment? So I want to hop over here to the teacher view. So once you're actually onboarded with Goblins, you'll be able to see, and I'll just hop in here, you'll be able to see this view where you can make assignments and also look at your past assignments. So those are just will appear here on the left. And this assignment has the data that we are actually just accessing. And so this could be, we see John and Amanda interacted with this assignment, and I'll get into what this performance data looks like. But first, let's just make a new one. I'll title this, pretty basic, webinar assignment number 2. And you can see we have a couple of options. Obviously, we can't create this quite yet, but we'll be able to create it once we throw in some topics there. And then we'll get into these settings as well. So topics, tons and tons of topics. I mean, this list goes on and on and on. Here's just like some of our greatest hits. They're all organized by unit, so you can look into absolute value and piecewise functions and sequences and quadratics, and here we have solving equations and inequalities and linear equations and graphs and so on. I could dig into any one of these. I'm going to dig into quadratics here, so I'm going to start searching for quadratics, and this will just narrow everything down by that either quadratics in the title of the topic or the unit in general. So you've got 2 units, we've got quadratics, multiplying and factoring. And then another one for like the actual functions and equations, that would be more like solving the actual quadratic. Let's say I want my students to work on quadratics by factoring. I have an intro version of this and then also a whole version of this. And you'll actually see these just popped over here on the right. And we can actually see this goes pretty deep with the amount of problems that we have in it. I can just start selecting them. And these are going into my assignment. So I actually have 3 problems already ready to go in my assignment. And maybe I want some less introductory. So these are with a equals 1. What if we wanted, a equals 3 or a equals anything other than 1? We can start popping those in there too. And now we actually have 5 in our assignment. And anything that's intro will go before anything that is not intro. So we're going to have students work on this first, and then students will work on this. I could just click create. I mean, you saw how fast that was. You just find your topic and assign it, no problem. Other things we could do is we could just randomize these problems. Anything introductory will come first, but every student will end up with something very either analogous to this problem or basically a different problem altogether. Every student's going to get their own thing when it's randomized, and if not, we'll actually just show them these exact problems. And as far as due date goes, pretty straightforward. If a student hasn't completed the problems by that date, or they've completed only some of them by this date, this is in this case midnight, that would be midnight tonight, then their score will be locked in. If it's 0, they'll get a 0, and so on. And you can do that if you want to do it in sort of like a quiz-like fashion. That's totally up to you. And Goblins just auto-grades anything, and we'll talk about grading in just a second. That's all there is right now. One thing that will be coming in a second, and this is like really just around the corner, is the ability to scale up and down by difficulty of problem. And so if we notice, for example, the students are in the intro section, but they're just like acing them back to back, we're just going to upgrade them straight from intro back into the main section where A doesn't equal 1. And if we notice students are in A doesn't equal 1, but they're still kind of struggling, we're going to start scaling down a bit more. And that way you can figure out in real time, where's the student's ceiling? And that's really powerful because when we report the mastery back to you, we're able to see, let's see how far different students can reach, and we can show you, here are the students who are a little weaker, here are the students who are really getting it. And that way you can figure out how you need to focus your attention. So I'll click create here. Let's actually just watch this happen. This is going to do very little thinking, and then look at that. We've got our assignment ready to go. We actually have an assignment code for it. So you can access the Goblins app in a bunch of different ways. It's super versatile, a bunch of different devices we've talked about. In order to assign it to our students, all we have to do is provide them this code if they're in the app. If we're using something like Google Classroom or Canvas, we can just copy this direct link here and put that in our post so that the students can access it. And if they have the app on their phone, they can load this up on their phone. It will direct them actually directly into the app, but with that code already ready to go, they'll just hop right into the assignment. And the same thing on the web. If they're using a touchscreen Chromebook, they'll be directly into the assignment. And then if this is the first time the students have used the app, or they're actually doing this live in class, you could have the students just take a photo of this. We have the ability to actually cast it as well, onto your smartboard, for example, and that means the students just have to look at it with their phone, and they'll hop right into the assignment as well. So there's a couple different ways of doing this, both asynchronously and synchronously. And then at any point, if I'm wondering, what was actually in this assignment again, I can preview all of the content of the assignment, and that'll appear right here. So we could go in and I could get into the assignment and show some performance data, or let's just go back to a sample assignment so we can get a feel for like actual performance data and what that's like. Basically with Goblins, we're always trying to make it really easy for you to figure out where you need to focus your attention. So we have at the top just a general mastery report per student. We see one student needs help, one student is okay but not quite excellent, it's kind of bordering on excellent. Also very easy to see, here's the number of problems assigned, this many students started it, this many students finished, and then also we have a grid here with different students' performance vis-a-vis each individual problem. And if we wanted to, we could go in and get a better feel for every student's performance. Like for example, if I wanted to see how John did on problem number 5, I could either hop directly into the conversation, or I could head over to problem number 5 and get the drill down. Again, now we see John versus Amanda on problem number 5. You see what problem number 5 consisted of, how many attempts there were, how many finished. And let's look at John's conversation real fast. So John is solving for x by factoring. This is what he's told to do. He says, should I use the quadratic formula? Okay, well, that's interesting. So the teacher says, I appreciate you asking about the quadratic formula, but this problem actually asked us to solve this with factoring. Okay, great. But the student says, but you can't factor this. It is 3x squared. And the student actually obviously spoke this. It's just basically written out as it was spoken. And we're going to classify this as a struggle because that's actually suggestive of the fact that the student may not understand that something doesn't have to be directly, or rather, when a is not 1, that it actually still is the standard form of a polynomial, of a quadratic in this case. And so we're going to report that back to you, and you'll be able to see in an aggregate level, like which students struggled for which concept, and that's something we're increasingly going to be able to notify you about. Hey, a lot of these students are struggling with this particular idea. And he was kind of helped his way through until eventually he was able to factor. In this case, he struggled in identifying the correct signs, and so on and so forth. John really struggled with this, but eventually, it looks like we're going to get there. We got there. Whereas in the case of Amanda, we can drill into this conversation. Amanda just got there straight up. So Amanda seems to be at a pretty high level here, and is especially considering that she was able to do a tougher one. Amanda is like really just bordering on excellent right here, really almost at perfect level. So a cool thing about Goblins that you're probably noticing is that this really isn't about right versus wrong. If you've used tools like IXL or Delta Math, you've seen like if a student does well, they're going to get the full points. If not, as in if the student puts in the wrong answer, even if it means that they just didn't put in the decimal in the right place, or they just didn't kind of format it exactly how IXL wanted it, it's going to get marked wrong and the student gets a poor grade. Not the case with Goblins, because the cool thing about Goblins is it's like you're sitting down one-on-one with your student. That's kind of the feeling. Like, what if there were 30 of you in the classroom? And so if the student is willing to engage, and Goblins is especially engaging because it's giving that feedback all the time, the student's going to get the right answer eventually. And so we find that it's much more useful to think of student performance in terms of whether or not they struggled. And as you can see, how we define whether or not they struggled is just based on were they able to do the question, were they able to complete it without any kind of aids? Like, were they given a hint? Were they corrected in some manner or another? Do we notice a misconception, etc.? And that's all reported back to you, so you can see in real time, oh, I see, this is precisely how that student struggled. And you'll be able to know the nature of that struggle as well. So that's all pretty cool with Goblins. That's the performance view in a nutshell. And this is actually becoming even more robust with time. If we notice a lot of students are struggling with a concept, we'll make it really easy for you to just click an assign button right on that little notification that will be reported right here. And you'll be able to just generate a new assignment on the fly for all the students who struggle with this exact cluster of concepts. That's all coming soon as well too. But a lot of this foundation is already built here. Now, if you wanted to port your grades over to your LMS, you have a few options. You can do this on the basis of the student's mastery vis-a-vis each individual assignment that you've assigned. And we see there's 3 assignments here that are ready to be exported to your LMS. Or you can do this based on completion. Our recommendation is to do it on completion, and that way you kind of give the students the proper incentive to make the mistakes that they need, and we're not going to call that a struggle. They can really give it a shot and do their best with it, and if they can't quite get it, that's fine. You get the data, you know what their level is, but they're not going to get penalized for that authentic view or the authentic assessment. And so you have the option to do it both ways. This will port directly into your Google Classroom on a per problem basis, on a per student basis, also to your Canvas, and then also support for other LMSs are coming soon. That's basically all there is to it. And then for licenses, let's say you're ready to go on purchasing licenses for your students. We do this on a per student basis. So that means let's say you have a class of 25 Algebra 1 students, you would purchase 25 licenses for them. But we've had some requests also from principals who want to apportion licenses, let's say for a period of time here, a period of time like this class, that class, or I want just like 10 licenses and I'll just kind of shuffle it around the room as students need. That's cool too. We can help you kind of maximize the value that you get out of your licenses. And so you can easily just apportion your licenses to the students in your roster. And your roster gets directly imported again from your learning management system. So we see, for example, that a couple of students are already active, and we have a couple of students that are inactive. You can just quickly click an activate button right here, and it will ask you, which student you want to take the license from to give it to this student. This student's account will now become active. So if the student, let's say, Cassandra wants to use the app, Cassandra will be ready to go. Whereas in the case of John is inactive. John would need the license essentially assigned to his account, and then he'd be ready to go. So again, it's very dynamic, and you can use your licenses to the maximum effect. So that is the Goblins experience in a nutshell. As you can tell, this actually didn't take that long, in large part because it was designed to be simple. We actually designed this alongside actual teachers who were part of our beta this past year, and then actual like summer school teachers who have given us feedback as we've gone. And so, this is designed to make your life, as easy as possible. You should spend as little time as possible in this interface, and then you should be able to get the information that you need out of it really fast. And that's the principle that we're going to keep using as we continue to develop Goblins. And if there's something that's interesting to you that wasn't called out here, that you feel like you're like, oh, this should definitely be there, reach out to us. We are really open, and we're excited to work with you and support you in your classroom. Our goal here is to inspire your kids. That's why we exist. And in order to do that, you as the teacher have to be extremely well served. So feel free to email me at my personal email. That's Sawyer, Sawyer, @goblinsapp.com. And I'll make sure that anything that you'd like to see in this app, we're going to heavily prioritize. And I'd say chances are really high that you're going to see it in very short time. One other thing that I want to just note here is when you're creating a new assignment, you'll also have the option to search by standards as well. We have actually a huge database of standards for all 50 states. You'll be able to search by your state standards. We're just going through and doing some of the last tagging on that, and you'll be able to just on your personal settings flag whether or not you'd like to search by standard or by topic, and then when you come here, instead of searching by topics, you'll search by standard. That's coming very soon. We've had a couple of teachers request that, and that's just one example of one of the ways in which we're responding to teacher feedback in real time. So thank you so much for your interest. Really looking forward to serving your classroom. Thanks for being here, and we'll inspire some kids together soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.